Hey, everybody, welcome to Matt Men, your source for all things professional wrestling. I'm Andrew Zarian. I'm joined by the Dean, Rich Stambolian.
Yeah, the Dean of Beans, baby. I love coffee.
I got today, so this is our second show of the week. So I woke up this morning, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to text Rich at like 7 o'clock in the morning. Crack ass beginning of the day. I'm like, want to do a show today? He's like, yeah, what do you want to talk about? I go, nothing and everything. There is no set topic today. We're going to be taking phone calls. We're going to be taking your Q&A questions in the chat room. It's going to be a total free-for-all of an episode of Matt Men. I really wanted to do a second show, and here we are. We're doing a second show. Rich.
It's very exciting.
I know. I'm glad that you're here because I normally you're busy on the weekend, so I was like, oh, okay, he's not doing anything. Perfect.
It's almost like you're stalking me. But you know what I like about that story is that we're both early birds. So if you text me at 6:30 in the morning, chances are I'm up.
You're up, yeah. We both wake up super, super early. Like, I like to get my day done by 2.
Oh, dude, that's the best, isn't it?
That's the best. My goal is to be done with everything by 2. But I thought, there's a lot of moving parts right now in pro wrestling. Since Thursday, there's a lot more news that came out regarding, obviously, AEW's ratings and the quarter hours and NXT and WWE news and all these moving parts. So I thought, you know what? It might be cool to do a lot of like the new rumor aspect of stuff today and then also do our Q&A. So what we're going to do the second half of the show, around 11:35, 11:40 East, we'll be opening up the phone lines. If you want to call in, you can. It's 888-828-1437. That's 888-828-1GFQ. You can call in, and we'll put you live on the line. If you call in, what you're going to hear is us talking. When it's time for you to talk, turn down your radio, and you're going to hear this. And that means that you're on the air. That's how it works.
We're on the radio?
We are on the radio. This is a radio show. So a lot to talk about. Did you watch SmackDown last night?
I watched a bit of it. I enjoyed the Roman stuff with Kevin Owens, and you know what? And honestly, like, I really got into Carmella yesterday.
Carmella.
I'll be the horny guy for 2 seconds. I really got into the Carmella stuff yesterday, but it kind of, you know what? It kind of went nowhere. I still liked it. The highlight though of SmackDown is clearly Roman Reigns.
Oh, dude, big time.
I have a theory for you.
Give me.
And I was gonna text this to you, but I feel like this is gonna happen. You ready?
Yeah. Give me.
He loses to Kevin Owens at TLC.
Oh, you think so?
Okay. And here's the catch.
Okay.
Right? Kevin Owens gets beat by Goldberg again to get that belt.
Oh.
And then you get Goldberg versus Roman.
Oh.
They do it again.
You're not happy with that, right?
I'm okay with that. I think it's funny.
The idea that you came up with, like, that is not your I want to see concept.
I don't want to see it, but I feel like that's what's going to happen because that would be WWE trolling us and kind of doing a little tongue-in-cheek move by having Kevin Owens get that Universal title again, or whatever this one is, and losing to Goldberg in another squash match, and then having Goldberg versus Roman somewhere. Right, for that belt.
If you see the chat room right now, Rich, you have ruined everybody's Saturday morning. I hope you're happy.
You know what? This is an extra show. They can all go fuck themselves.
Everybody's ruined right now with this. No, listen, I could see them doing something like that, but it would piss people off so much more than they would imagine. Super heat, but you're putting the heat on the wrong guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, but interesting concept. I kind of want to see something different like that. Listen, we were talking about this last week, and it's turned into a meme now, where you see, it's a picture of Goldberg, and it's everybody crapping on bringing back an old timer, and then a picture of Sting, and everybody's so happy that Sting is going to have a match or Sting is in AEW. Listen, I don't subscribe to the philosophy that the older guys shouldn't be on TV, right? I do, however, think that if you're not using the older guys to elevate younger talent or having them in their own isolated bubble, you are making a mistake, right? Like, if you have two of the older guys in a match that really doesn't take away from anything, that's cool. Or you have a legendary match that doesn't take away from anything, that's cool. But if you have a Bill Goldberg being your top guy without it meaning that you're putting over a younger talent, that's where I have a little bit of an issue.
I agree with that 100%, but it's very weird what WWE does, and it's kind of 50-50. I'll give you two good examples, right?
Give me.
Kurt Angle's return a couple of years ago, fans were super happy about this because they were like, yo, he's going to get that one last amazing run, right?
And they didn't do it.
They didn't do it. His tag match with Ronda Rousey, pretty damn fantastic.
Yeah, big time.
Right?
Big time.
Great moments. But then the way that they shoved this guy into storylines and had him end his career with WWE left a sour taste in everybody's mouth, right?
You know,
it's a weird way to do it, right?
I think the philosophy of Kurt Angle, like what they did with Kurt was, so I asked about this a while ago, right? Because it didn't make sense. You got Kurt Angle back. I didn't, and he obviously still could go at that point. Not great, but there were moments like, well, it's interesting because it's almost the opposite, right? Like if you watch somebody in wrestling, if you watched a lot of independent wrestling, like Rich and I have, or if you're kind of you know what to look for, the moves are the easiest part to do, but it's the in between that looks awkward on a new talent, right? Because their thought process is they know the moves, they know the footing, but what do you do in between moves? You're awkward. Kurt had the opposite thing. Like his ring presence was so good until he made a move because he's so stiff at this point.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like
that.
it was. Yeah. I'm not taking away because I thought even at the end he was still going, but you could tell that he was so stiff from I guess years of being beat up. But they could have done so much more with him.
He's the first example, right? Second example, Rey Mysterio. So you bring Rey Mysterio back kind of in like a biggish sort of way, and he's got a lot to give to the company, right? Especially with the younger guys.
Yeah.
But they're having him in a program with Seth, who doesn't need any help
to get
anything.
over. Yeah.
Get over, right? So that's like a weird way to use a guy. The Goldberg stuff, they bring him in for like these big high profile matches. They put the belt on him a couple of times, And I think the big disconnect with fans is that they love at this point in time, and we've talked about this a lot, is people love to politicize everything, and you're getting that between AEW and WWE, right? So what's the difference between like your coffee and my tea in that regard is fans kind of know that AEW were the kings of the indies. They're a little more homegrown than WWE is. And you know that Sting isn't going to have squash matches and a big title run and make people groan. I think they're also just upset that he's there on TV, and it's this knee-jerk reaction of like, you're taking time away from the young guys and this and that. And it's a BS response, to be honest,
Listen, I great example of this is the ratings pop that they saw for AEW.
Yeah,
AEW did about 995,000 viewers, almost 1 million people from that, that magic 1 million number that they want to hit. But do you know what the most viewed segment was on that show?
Hit me.
It got 1.25 million viewers. It was Shaq and Brandy.
Oh my God, really?
Okay. Says a lot, right?
Wow.
Shaq and Brandy was the most viewed segment on that show. 1.2 million viewers.
Wow.
This is what it's about, guys. At the end of the day, it's never going to be this pure. And listen, there's also a lot of gatekeeping in wrestling, which I hate. The gatekeeping is wrestling needs to be Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano every single week on TV having 5-star matches. If you're not giving me that and you're giving me a guy that's not as good of a worker as those two, I don't want to see it. But the reality is, listen, the people that are interested in that is about 500,000 viewers. We've spoken about this numerous times. Impact Wrestling gets about 200,000 viewers on Access. Okay? That is a hardcore niche viewership that tunes in every week no matter what. 250,000 around there, sits around there. That's what you're going to get if you want that kind of traditional wrestling. Reality is you got to add more oomph to this. And that's what Vince is known for. Listen, Vince changed the entire industry. And there are people that still cry that Vince ruined wrestling. If it wasn't for
Right.
Vince and his and the whole rock and wrestling connection and all that stuff that we look back and we say, "Oh yeah, this isn't wrestling. It was, Vince's vision of being a big entertainment show." That's the only reason why we're talking about pro wrestling right now. It wasn't the wrestling that got us interested as
Mhm.
kids. It
It was
was
the
the
pomp.
larger than life, the pomp. The pomp and circumstance is what got us
Yeah.
all here. Now,
Yeah.
there has to be a balance, though, right? We got to talk about a balance. And the balance is, uh, you know, somewhere in between what AEW is doing and what WWE does. And they're both are going to go back and forth on this. Sometimes you're going to get a heavier wrestling product, and sometimes you're going to get more entertainment. Talking about SmackDown. SmackDown was it was a 2-angle show.
Right.
That's all it was. And everything
Mhm.
else is just filler. The
Superfluous.
filler's the wrestling that everybody's complaining about. How SmackDown is
Exactly.
boring.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we got to step back sometimes
Mhm.
as viewers and say, okay, you know what? We complain about the angles, and then we complain about and I'm not talking about anybody's individual thoughts here because everybody
Right,
gets
right, right.
upset when I say this. But I'm just saying for a moment of reflection of what actually we want. At the end of the day, what we want is to have a really captivating story that draws us into a match.
Absolutely.
That's really what it
Long-term
is.
booking.
Listen,
Long-term booking.
long-term booking. By the way, I want to give a big shout out again to Conrad. Conrad and Bruce did their Pat Patterson tribute show last week, and they did a continuation this week. They did a second part to this of Pat Patterson's stories and just Bruce's overall relationship with Pat and Vince, and you really get to see like the intricacy of this relationship and why Bruce is there. But he brought up something interesting. He brought up the fact that, oh man, I cannot remember now who it was, but uh it was two guys, and the entire match was essentially booked. It was a 1 hour match. It was booked around a headlock. The whole thing was
Okay.
booked around a headlock, and the crowd loved it because they were telling a story. It wasn't a headlock they were into. They were into the story that presented before the match. Why are we all loving Roman Reigns right now? Why do we love the Roman Reigns and Kevin Owens stuff? Because of the story that is being told prior to them having a match.
Right. Well, obviously that's what you need to do to put asses in seats, right? That's the old school method.
That's the old school method. Yeah, you build,
Yeah.
and then your match is your match. Uh,
Right.
I think when everybody sits back and now you could tweet and you could have different opinions and you're reading all these different thoughts. A lot of people are confused on how they should feel about it, dude.
Mhm.
If you listen, if you want to see Bill Goldberg, awesome. If you don't want to see Bill Goldberg, it's one segment. It's over.
Right.
It
You can
shouldn't
not
ruin your
watch.
entire experience. You can not watch. You shouldn't ruin your entire experience with this. Uh, listen. Do I want to watch a Bill Goldberg match? Not really, but he comes out, he gets a big pop, he does his thing, he spits a bat, does that, and he's gone. All right, cool.
Yeah.
All right, fine.
Great.
It's
You
cool.
don't. I mean, like we have the ability to get up and walk away and not complain.
Yeah.
But also, I think the people who are on the opposite end of that have the ability that they use to sit and complain.
Yeah.
I think I think there's a big disconnect now, especially during the time we live in and how we consume our entertainment, and that distinction is people want the entire show to be dedicated to exactly how they see it happening in their heads.
But
And
okay,
when
but here's a question for you, Rich. Why do
shoot,
people feel that way now? This is
I
something
can't.
new. Why? But
Yeah,
why do we feel that way?
I personally do think it's because we have so many choices. We have such access to social media that everybody's voice is heard, which is great. But I think also like with that voice comes a certain level of responsibility that people don't use. You know what I mean? Like just because somebody has an opinion doesn't mean it's right.
Yeah.
And I think that's the whole thing. We're like, we live in a world where every single thing you do and buy and consume is dedicated to your exact preferences. Like if you buy something on Amazon, it'll suggest a bunch of shit that goes with the thing you bought.
Yeah.
If you do a web search for anything, you will get a bunch of suggestions of like, oh, you know what? Like maybe I will buy this, maybe I will buy that. It's the neuroscience that helps us consume that turns watching something into a nightmare for these people because they're not getting what they want.
Yeah.
If you remove yourself from that, you're going to have a better time watching wrestling. Also, it's pro wrestling at the end of the day. It's not like these guys are running small countries or they have the fate of the world in their hands. It's
Yeah.
Bill Goldberg.
Yeah. We got a caller here. You want to take this?
Let's do it, baby.
888-828-1437. That's 888-828-1437. Let's take this. Caller, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
It's Corey from the Bronx.
Hey, what's going on?
Of course.
Hey guys. Just wanted to get in the Roman Reigns, I guess, conversation. I think by far right now he is the best heel in the business right now, and I find it really interesting the idea that this guy was having a really hard time getting over when they tried to make him the baby face, basically face of the company. And now, I don't know if it's due to the fact that, he went through the leukemia and everything else, that he's just more relaxed and he doesn't have that pressure. And I find it really interesting now what they're doing with, Kenny Omega having to try to be now a heel, being elite. They ended, I guess it was this week or last week's episode, saying that, he's turned heel. Do you think that Kenny is going to be able to be a believable heel? Because I'm just not sure that, when he was in New Japan, he didn't have to talk. And as good as Don Callis is, I think at some point he's going to have to do a believable heel promo week in and week out. And I'm just not sure if he's a believable heel promo. I was wondering what your guys' thought was on that.
I think that's great. Rich, you want to go first? I think that's a great question, by the way.
Yeah. Oh boy, there's so many parallels between the Kenny thing and the Roman thing. Also, are you the iPhone guy?
Yeah, I was.
Hey, listen, dude. Before we get into that, let's do a little what the tech here. Don't go with the mini. Don't go with the mini. Go with the larger size one. You'll regret going with a small phone.
Oh, really? No, Verizon is my provider was doing like a little thing where it was like $5 a month for like 24 months. I was like,
oh, that's actually pretty good then. Then you should do it. $5 a month is really good.
Corey, so you have your own podcast, right?
Yeah, yes, we do.
Okay, what was the name of your podcast? I'm sorry, I'm spacing out.
The Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. Thank you for the free call, as always.
You got it. So how would you dissect? Let's do a little point counterpoint thing here. How would you dissect the Roman and Kenny thing in your eyes?
I think, like I said, I think the idea of Roman not having to go and be the face of the company I think Roman is basically doing what he does in interviews, and like I don't know if you guys have heard like him. I think with Johnny Trainer, he was just basically being the boisterous, just being the fact that he knows that he's better and he deserves this spot, and he's just being like the whole idea of putting your personality to 11. And I think that he just has the ease of just being with Heyman and just being a boisterous version of himself. Where Kenny is, I think he's trying to play a character. And I don't know if that's really going to work, because I think Kenny is this guy who wants to be loved by the fans, and they want to put this idea of, in New Japan, he was the best bout machine, and he was in part of the stable. And I'm just not sure if it's going to work, a guy that the fans want to cheer, but he needs to be as the biggest heel because, Cody can't be champion. But, so I don't know what they need to do here. And they're basically in the Attitude Era of throwing 100 things at the table. So, Kenny needs to be a heel, but John needs to be the face. So, I'm not sure where they go with this.
So there's a couple things, right? Go ahead, Rich. You pick it.
Okay. So, sorry. Okay. So that, I feel like what you said at the end there was a lot of people said the same thing, where last week's episode of Dynamite really threw a whole lot of stuff into the frying pan, right? And it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. As far as the Roman stuff goes, I'm gonna agree and disagree with you. The thing with Roman is it's been well known from other guys who've worked with him that he has the most amazing personality on that roster. That backstage Roman is the coolest dude on the planet, right? And I do think that this version of Roman is gonna turn into that superstar babyface, that career babyface that WWE wanted for him from the start. Give it like
When he
another
finally
year.
turns, you mean?
When he finally turns, he's gonna turn into that cool guy that we all know he could be, right?
So
The Kenny stuff, he's super tongue in cheek at this point. You know, like we're not getting the best bout machine. We're getting like the troll. Kenny right now is a troll, and it's great.
So I would break it down this way, right? Like Roman is playing a very real life character. I think this is actually a major reflection of his personality. I'm not talking about that he's a bad guy. I just mean he's very confident that he is one of the best guys in the business. He knows this. He's an athlete from the beginning. So when you are a football player, when you are at that caliber, to at least be considered to become a professional athlete, you have a sort of arrogance about your abilities. You have to have that. It's a wall you put up, and I think they're channeling that with him. I think he's the best heel right now in wrestling in this caliber. Main product caliber. Kenny is a cartoon. He loves anime. And this is a reflection of what he sees a villain to be. And to him, his source is not Ric Flair. It's not Jake Roberts. His source is anime and video games.
Yes.
So that's what he's channeling. I think it's going to work. I thought he was really good this week on TV with his promos. The promo on Wednesday was better than the promo on Tuesday. I think he's now... You also have to remember, he's getting into this role. He hasn't been a heel in a very long time. And like you said, even in Japan, he really didn't have to talk much, right, as a heel. He would say a cartoonish line, and it would get over, and people would, that would be it. By the way, you brought up something interesting, his promo ability and it being a cartoon. You know who else does that? Keith Lee. Keith Lee is a big fan of a anime-style, video game-style heel babyface promo. And unfortunately for him... it's not really working out, which we'll talk about. But Corey, great question. Absolutely loved it.
One other quick thing. I was just wondering your guys' point of view. At this point, I don't know if you guys had a chance to listen to the Renee Young interview with CM Punk. Do you think he is trolling the fans at this point, or it's been 6 years? Do you think he really would come back if the right storyline / money was there?
I think he definitely will come back if the right money and right storyline was there. What about you, Rich?
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. All it takes is $1 and a dream.
That's it. No, I thought let's talk about that after the call. Thank you again for the phone call, man.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
Hey, give a plug to the podcast.
All right, and as always, thanks, guys. Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast. You can find it wherever you download podcasts. We do show every Friday, and as always, with the pandemic, it's been a little crazy, but we'd love to have either both of you or one of you guys on anytime when you're available, and we'll try to figure that out.
Send us an email. We'll set it up.
All right, guys. Keep up the great work.
All right, thank you. 888-828-1437. That's 888-828-1437. So let's talk about that. Which we'll get back to CM Punk because I think that's going to be a nice topic for us to talk about.
Sure.
He was on Renee Paquette's podcast, not Renee Young, Renee Paquette. We'll talk about that after, but I do want to talk about the latest news about Vince blowing a freaking gasket and sending the big guys to the Performance Center. So
Weird
I don't
move,
know.
huh?
Well, no. Well, yeah, yes. But do you remember how many weeks ago I said they're having a problem with Keith Lee's style? He wrestles like a small guy, and they don't like that. Yeah. And everything he does is very animated. Like even his chops are very boom. Like everything is like a big spectacle with his moves.
Yeah.
They don't like that. And I'm trying to confirm this, but the story's coming out that really Bruce was in Vince's ear about this, about how the big guys have a real problem coming off on TV because they don't have the presence that a big guy has to have. I believe Dio was sent back down to the Performance Center. I believe Otis is going to the Performance Center, Keith Lee, and a couple other people. I don't have the list in front of me. But what do you make of that? Because Keith Lee is fascinating because indie darling, everybody loved him in NXT. Yeah. This guy got over so fast in NXT, by just being present. A year ago, he did the face-to-face moment at Survivor Series. Then he had that big moment in the Royal Rumble. People were very high on this guy, and he showed up on the main roster. First week, big moment, and after that, it's been nothing but a disaster. What do you think happened?
Much like I think this was just like a very anal move on WWE's part, and I'll tell you exactly why. There's no crowds, right? So whatever they present on TV has to be as perfect as possible. And I agree with you. I do think somebody got in Vince's ear and said, like, hey, these guys are kind of making a few mistakes here and there. We really need to give them a little more polish and then bring them back. Or it could just be a case of their no one is safe mentality, where, oh, you love this guy, well, we're going to send him back for more training. Oh, you love this guy, we're going to send him back for more training.
So one of the things that may have gotten, they what do they say? Telegram, tele-wrestler.
Yeah.
I think here's the story with Bruce here. The big story coming out is that Bruce is not a fan of NXT's training. He thinks they're not training the wrestlers well. That is not true at all. That is not a factual thing. What it is, however, is the complaint that Bruce and many other people have, and that's everybody works the same.
Yes.
Everybody is being trained the same, so everybody works the same. You're not being taught. Great example. I bring this up all the time. Kenny Omega. The way Kenny Omega bounces off the ropes, okay? The way Kenny Omega takes that one step back and then rapidly jumps forward. That is a very unique way of running the ropes. You know who else was very unique? Hogan had a unique way. Macho had a unique way. Austin had a very unique way. The Rock, Hunter. But now you look at all the NXT guys, they all run the ropes the same exact way. And I'm getting 800 messages right now. I don't know why.
They're homegrown guys.
Oh,
absolutely.
my God. Sorry.
What's the matter?
I got like 850. I hate this phone.
Is Cuomo shutting down your house now?
Yeah.
Is Cuomo shutting down the studio?
Cuomo's outside.
No more indoor studio?
No more studio. Cuomo shut it down. The way that they all train, they bump, they do everything is the same. Very similar, I should say. Not exactly the same. And WWE's not a fan of the difference in the style because then it looks wrong. So this is what we're talking about. If Bruce does have a criticism, it's actually that. The fact that these guys are not going to different territories, learning different styles and different moves. They're learning a very standard way. So they come in with what they have, and WWE does the best that they can to take away all the extras and just make it an assembly line way of doing things. Ricochet's one of these guys that they've really messed up. They've taken this guy's confidence away.
I agree with that big time. You look at that, the example I'm going to use is that the series that Ospreay and Ricochet had, completely different guy. That's what made you love the dude, stuff like that. And then when he got to NXT, he did a lot of cool stuff. Main roster, the dude is just another body.
Yeah. It's astounding. And by the way, I was talking to my friend Brian, our good friend at the show, Brian Alvarez, and he got a lot of crap this week because he tweeted that NXT's in the mud, right? That was his tweet. And people are losing their minds that he's shitting on NXT and he's all about AEW. Let me just tell you, do people not think NXT's in the mud right now? They're just spinning their tires at this point. Look at their roster from 18 months ago. Mm-hmm. I want you to think about this. Look at the NXT roster 18 months ago and look at it today. You're going to tell me that this company is not, that this brand is not in the mud at this very moment? Not saying it as a critical that these guys aren't doing well. I think their TV is really good. It's just 18 months ago, look who they had. Top to bottom, that roster. Now you've gone 2 hours. Yeah. You've taken already a depleted roster, added an extra hour, taken everybody away. Oh, and you know what? This is why the rating is where it is at 600,000 viewers.
I agree with you 100%. There are many I know you're not taking a dump on NXT right now.
Absolutely not. I love the product. Sure. I absolutely do. Let me just say that. I absolutely love the product. I love NXT. Even how is it possible that this company has yet to have a bad pay-per-view? You know what I mean? Think about it that way. It just says that the product is very good. However, 18 months ago is not that long ago.
Yeah, year and a half. You're like I said, you're not. I know you're not taking a dump on the product, like Jonathan just said. He took a dump in his laundry basket.
Oh, wonderful.
What you're trying to say is, it's grown stale. I think after that USA deal, right? There are definitely lots of high points, and the show is put together very well, but it doesn't have that same charm it did when it was on Wednesday nights for an hour on the
Yeah.
network.
Yeah.
Right? That 1 hour show did so much to help that talent because it was so jam-packed, it was so well scripted, and then moving to 2 hours, it just and as denied as they as much as they do, they are trying to knock AEW out of the running, right?
Of course, that's the goal, yeah.
They're trying to show them like, "Hey, we're the machine. There's no way you guys are going to beat us in ratings. You can have a shot at our developmental show," right? And
Yeah.
it does seem like they're spinning their wheels in a lot in the regard of like a lot of things. And it also, and as much as they want to push it as the third brand, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you see it as a true third brand at this point, or do you see it as this is like their own island of misfit toys?
You know what? That's a good way of putting it. It depends on the week. I would say, and that's, I do think it's their third brand. I do think that listen, the whole goal of NXT was to get these guys, polish them up, build them, so they're not coming in cold on the main roster, and then they debut, and you're like, oh man, Ricochet's here. This guy is awesome. Right. This guy is great. Keith Lee's here. Matt Riddle's here. Whoever. And because they're now a competitive product, they've taken those guys, moved them to the top roster, and then the guys there now, the excitement is gone. You know, and I'm not talking about Johnny Gargano. You talk about, I just feel that they've chopped off their arm to save their toe. Because now they're not only are they a TV product that they have to be very competitive and have their own top roster on that product, they also now have to supply people to the main roster and compete with a show that's beating them every week in the ratings. They're not they're not being positioned for success. They're being positioned for a defensive measure to prevent that magical 1 million mark to hit AEW. I do think it's an interesting conversation to have, but we do have a phone call. Let's take this. Caller, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
This is the Grape. I'm calling from Manhattan.
The Grape! Ayaz Akhtar.
Grape.
What level of purple are you right now? Are you a purple grape or are you a green grape? What color grape are you?
Currently, I'm in the lavender phase because I haven't had my coffee, but later it's going to be full-on royal purple.
Good friend of the show, Ayaz Akhtar. For people who don't know, Ayaz is an institution in tech journalism and content.
And
an instigator of tech journalism and content.
That is me. I'm the instigator, the impressive, and every other I word you could think of. Impatient as well.
Impatient, yeah. What's going on? So, what do you think? What do you think of wrestling right now? I haven't seen you since the pandemic started. I mean, probably a little before that. But we would grab a drink every now and then. We would get together, and everything kind of went to hell in the world right now. So, I haven't seen you or spoken to you about this. But give me your point of view on pro wrestling right now.
I was listening to you guys talk about NXT, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. When it comes to that product, I used to watch that all the time when it was a 1 hour show. The 2 hour show seems like they're burning through storylines, and we're moving really fast. And then the only show I watch regularly now at this point is AEW.
Yeah.
Just because I know it's only 2 hours, and I have trouble watching BTE every now and then because you got to keep up, right? So when it comes to the WWE product, which I enjoy, who doesn't love their stuff every now and then? The new Thunderdome is out. It came out, yesterday? They did SmackDown. So I was watching that. Roman Reigns' storyline is really great. I still think we're still in this weird point of adjustment that is, because we have the piped-in fans with Thunderdome, and then you have the 1,000 people at AEW, which kind of makes it feel like back when we used to go to indie stuff, right? Like, okay, it sounds like an indie show because there's
in a very large building, in a very large building.
So, but at least it sounds familiar. So I think it's. I'm kind of surprised at how well all the organizations have adjusted. I know a while ago you mentioned something when it came to something like Impact, when they changed their staging, it looked as big as the Performance Center, which looked as big as everything else.
Well, the current setup you're talking about, right, in Nashville.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, oh, dude, it looks unbelievable. I actually think this is the best that Impact has looked in years. This
Because
looks better
you're not worried about-
than the Impact Zone.
You're not worried about the fans, right? So you can shoot it a totally different way.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it looks big league. So I mean, I'm surprised at how well everyone's adjusting to the pandemic. I can't wait for things to go back to somewhat normal, because I'm sure once that happens, WWE is going to be able to go like, look, we have 85,000 people at WrestleMania 37 or 8, whatever the number is going to be, and that'll like adjust things. I'm just really curious how AEW is going to bounce back once everyone's allowed back into arenas.
I think that's a good question. I think I think for WWE, they're going to have a major shift in business. We know that they're not going back to the traditional touring schedule that they've had over the last 20 some odd years. They've realized that house shows, I mean, they were making, I mean, I'm going to say a number, but I'm using this as an example, and I'm not using it as a statistic. You know, it's not I don't have the number in front of me, but if I told you that WWE is making only $350 a house show, would you tell me it's worth it for them to do these house shows? You would most likely know it's not. And they were kind of in that bubble. I'm not talking about the house shows in the Garden or the Spectrum or, you know, TD Arena in Boston. Like, I'm talking about, you know, those B level house shows that they were running in some town, or the secondary house shows that they're running in major markets. Those shows are gone. We're not going to have those anymore. What they're probably going to do is have Monday Raw. They're going to have a live audience, obviously, for NXT. They're going to have Friday Night SmackDown. That'll be their big show. They're going to have their pay-per-view once a month or once every 6 weeks. So now you got 4 shows. And then they'll probably do a big Saturday Sunday show. And that's it. Sundays if there's a pay-per-view. No Sunday if there isn't. You know, like, you got to look at what makes sense. Running the Garden for a house show makes sense. Running a small market, I'm trying to think of a small market building. MG Geek, you could probably fill me in. You know what? The Hartford Civic Center, right? They haven't run that building in a long time. Does it make sense for WWE to run the Hartford Civic Center? No, not anymore. Doesn't make sense anymore.
No.
Yeah, there's also the curiosity of whether WWE is going to realize the longevity they can get out of their athletes if they're not doing 4 or 5 days a week. Like, you can just have once a week, twice a week, and you got the brand still split up. So you can get a lot more out of these same performers, and you can have longer term. But then, again, you got to have longer term storylines, which I don't see happening on TV.
But here's the other question here, right? And here's the AEW side of things. AEW has the total opposite issue, where they don't have enough TV. They don't. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say TV. They don't have enough events for their talent to work and learn. That's another issue that they face. A 2-hour program weekly on TNT is not enough for. And listen, for the viewers, I think we benefit because we see less, so we want more. We're not overexposed. But the guys like Joey Janela. By the way, Joey Janela's in the main event next week on AEW. He's facing Kenny Omega for the world title, which I think that's a cool setup. I think AEW does a good job of getting those smaller guys in those big time matches. But, you know, you got to see some of these guys. Like, I have seen virtually nothing of Brian Cage. Right? We haven't really seen much. And this is a dude. And listen, you have AEW After Dark. You have all that stuff, right? AEW Dark. AEW Dark. Yeah.
AEW Dark. Show me all the
After Dark is what we did. You know, the plan was they were actually adding a second show on TNT that they were going to run some of these matches on. But I don't think Thunder. I think the bigger story is not. It's not so much having more TV. I get it for the financial reason, but it's if these guys ran a special, you know, a network event, a BR live event every 6 weeks on a weekend, it might not be a bad idea. I think that would be the approach for them.
I agree with you. You also brought up a good point here, where these guys getting on TV is how they're learning, right? And they're not really getting that much learning time, or as opposed to before the pandemic, most of that roster was continuously doing indie dates and then showing up to TV.
Yeah.
Let
me ask you this before I let you go. You're a busy man. You live a mysterious life here in Manhattan. Give me your two top favorite things in pro wrestling right now.
Favorite things in pro wrestling?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a tough one. It's definitely going to be, first up is John Moxley.
Okay.
A lot of guys say this company's holding me back. They're holding me back, and this guy, from everything I've seen since the Shield days and everything, when he's become Moxley again with AEW, I am very impressed with his promo style. An actual good guy you root for.
Yeah.
Okay, and he's not a moron. It's oh yeah, I remember when good guys were smart.
Nailed it right on the head right there. Right. He's a babyface that's not a moron.
And I love that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And I will say the second thing will be the Roman Reigns storyline, because that dude seems relaxed. The Jey Uso is freaking acting his brains out. Everyone is doing a really great job with that whole storyline. It's intriguing. It's actually good television. So I will say those are my two favorite things right now that are going really well in pro wrestling right now.
Excellent. Ayaz, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
I hope
you guys mentioned my cooking show. Go to ayaz.tv/Spite, SPITE, to watch Spite Kitchen, the number one cooking show on the internet in the Spite division.
By the way, I called it one of the worst cooking shows I've ever seen, but in the very best possible way.
Yes.
It's really it's phenomenal.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So we were watching. I had it on. Listen to this, right? And then I'll let you go. But I had it on in the bedroom, and Jess comes in, and he goes. She looks at it. She's like, "This fucking guy looks like Ayaz," and because you had the glasses on, and you had the princess thing on, and she's like, "What the fuck is this guy doing?" I'm like, first of all, that is Ayaz, and he's doing a cooking show. He goes, "What is he making?" And I go, "Eggs." He's making eggs. And she walked out of the room.
That's the goal.
Ayaz, can you do an episode called The Grape Escape?
The Grape Escape. I can try. That might be a multi-parter. I might have to squash the grapes, turn them into wine in my own bathtub. I love the idea. Grape Escape. That'll be the first special.
There you go.
That's a Patreon exclusive.
Thank you very much, guys.
Always a pleasure. 888-828-1437. That's 888-828-1GFQ. Call in. The Grape Ayaz Akhtar from CBS.
So good. So good. I love that nickname.
Yeah. The Grape Ayaz Akhtar. I think that's actually hysterical that you came up with that.
What's next? What's next,
Andu? Andu. You want to do Q&A in the chat room while we also take some phone calls?
Absolutely, guys.
Okay.
Let's get your questions out there. Lou, we touched on a question so far. Louis Lamberti says AEW was supposed to get another show at one point on TNT, weren't they?
Yes, they were. It was supposed to probably debut. Let me think about this. Well, there was two things happening, right? They were supposed to get a trios title, and was going to be announced on the Jericho Cruise, the trios title. So I believe the Jericho Cruise is when, in January?
Yeah.
Right? So we were supposed to get a 3-man title, and if you look at AEW TV, a lot of it is building. They have a lot of trios, tons of trios happening, right?
Absolutely.
So that was a big thing for them. Then when was that second show supposed to go on? The second show was supposed to probably be like second or third quarter.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but we're
ahead.
having a little issue here. How can you call in from Canada? We have somebody in the chat.
Oh, you know what? That is my fault. I have a U.S. toll-free number. I have to convert this phone number to international 888 number.
All right, Scar Happy, that's your answer for right now.
You know what? It's on me.
$75 a minute.
I thought Canada works. Did he attempt to call in and it didn't work?
Yes, apparently he did.
Okay, so I gotta change the line over to a international 888. I'll do that this week. I know a lot of people in Canada watch, so we have a very large population in Edmonton. I don't know if you know that. Let's see. Work Shoot Wrestling Podcast says, do you think we see Marty Scurll at Final Battle, and thoughts on ROH continuing to take COVID seriously by sending home EC3, Bandito, Flaminta, and Kenny King? Let's see. I don't want to speculate on Marty right now. He had some plans. He was supposed to go. I mean, everybody wanted him, and then he had that accusation that he was during the moment that everybody was speaking out about, everything that was going on behind the scenes nefariously. He had an accusation that he had essentially slept with somebody that was 16, even though that's in Canada, that's I'm sorry, not in England, that's legal. But he was, I actually don't even know the full story for Marty, but I know that has slowed things down. He's back. He's going to be working in a couple of places. I don't know in what capacity or what his goal in ROH is. I don't know if he still has the book there. A lot of things shifted in ROH over the pandemic, so I got to follow up on that. But listen, man, Marty would be a great get for NXT. Marty would be a great get for AEW. Now with this AEW Impact relationship, I could see him trying to work both. I don't know. Where do you think Marty goes?
I think as a fan, we all wanted him to show up in AEW somehow, but I really think all those accusations hurt him for the time being, and it's not like, he's got that WWE machine behind him, like with a Velveteen or a Lars Sullivan. So it seems like he kind of disappeared for a little bit.
Where's
right?
Lars? Where is Lars?
He disappeared too. They're all disappearing. They're all Velveteen Dream's been off TV. All these the accused guys are they're starting their own federation.
The accused federation, is that?
So AFW. So they don't really, you don't really know where this guy's going to show up or where he's going to be, but I'm going to say he sticks with Ring of Honor for a little bit, maybe shows up in NWA, and then possibly does like he shows up as like a surprise in Japan or in AEW. I think if he's going to show up anywhere, it has to be a surprise.
Listen, I think if there was any moment to be able to do some sort of because he was in NWA also. He was working with NWA. Right. So there's a lot of these crossover moments that we're gonna see next year. I think everybody's realizing that they need to work together to make their product better. And I could see Kenny Omega showing up on NWA.
Yeah,
can you imagine?
That'd be amazing.
Him and Aldis have a face-to-face. Maybe he takes the belt. Maybe he becomes NWA champion. Right now, actually, there's a pay-per-view tonight. There's a AAA show tonight.
Yes. And Kenny is their mega champion, right?
He is their mega champion. He's wrestling tonight. Let me see when's the next show. I want to see the card here. I cannot find it.
Don't we also have a Final Resolution tonight or tomorrow?
We have, I believe, the AAA show is going to be on Twitch tonight, and there is a Ring of Honor show coming up too.
There's the Impact shows this weekend.
Impact shows this weekend, is it?
Yeah. And you're getting do you think Kenny shows up at that Impact show, or will he be in Mexico at that time?
Which show is this weekend for Impact?
I think it's Final Resolution.
Isn't that is it?
I don't even know what. Yes.
Impact Wrestling paper.
Oh, the Comb's coming. December 12th, 2020, which is tonight.
Tonight. Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
The Coma came and went.
And you're getting the main event for tonight is Rich Swan versus Chris Bay.
Okay, there you go.
Right? So we're going to get Rich Swan versus Kenny at some point.
Unless Chris Bay wins. I'd like to see Chris Bay and him.
That would be cool.
That would be cool too. I like that. Laredo Kid. He's working Laredo Kid in Mexico.
That's going to be a good match.
Is there going to be an audience there? Because I know that Mexico's getting destroyed right now with COVID as well. So I don't know if there's going to be a live audience there or not.
The show is going to stream on Twitch tonight, I believe, according to the Grape.
The Grape. Hiya, Zaktar. So I don't know, guys. I think we're in a very interesting moment for wrestling. Going into the new year. I don't know how this is going to play. Listen, all this is going to play out depending on how well the vaccine works, how well people do with COVID, with it not spreading and everything else. Super J Cup is tonight as well, by the way.
Very excited.
A lot of wrestling this weekend, huh? I know what I'm doing
wrestling.
tomorrow.
Watching wrestling.
Yeah. Transfer and Heat podcast asks, what happened to the Cody Rhodes versus Taz faction? Is Shaq being built for Brandy versus Jane?
Yes.
Yes. Shaq is going to have a moment with Cody. I know that they're going to do something. The Sting moment kind of took a piece of that. I thought Brandy's acting was phenomenal in that segment.
She was great, man.
She's
She came
so
off
good.
so well. Yeah.
So good. She came off really well. She's a really good promo, way better than a wrestler, but she's not a full-time wrestler, and I can't knock her on that. But I thought the Shaq thing was pretty cool. Nice crossover. And by the way, they got Snoop Dogg on January 6th, I believe, right?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Are we gonna see a Snoop Dogg Sting crossover shirt?
Hold on. Do you're concerned Snoop Dogg?
Well, tell me. Okay, so you have to be the exec that tells me that the appearance is not for WWE.
All right. So Snoop, you're going to be doing a commentary thing for wrestling, but it's not WWE. You're going to be doing it for a company called AEW.
I'm listening.
He's such a soft talker.
Uh-oh.
Oh my God. That's the
pound
best.
for pound, best Snoop Dogg impression on earth.
Do we get a Shaq-a-Rooney?
Who asked that? David?
Dave.
This guy can't wait to see everybody get Shaq-a-Rooney. I think I've seen him write this like 10 times this week on social media.
Dude, he wants a Shaq-a-Rooney.
Every time.
Does he do a Shaq-a-Rooney? Is that a thing he does?
It's a Shaq-a-Rooney.
A Shaq-a-Rooney.
Papa John's guy. You had Papa John's the other day. Were you trying to live vicariously through Shaq?
Oh yeah, maybe that's what it was. Dude, the Papa John's wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all.
No, when you get like, I had this conversation with Vicky the other day where it was like, when I'm close to blackout drunk, like if I have like 15% of life left, I'll get a Papa John's because I want salty dough for some reason. I want salty dough in my system. And you know what? Pizza shouldn't have dipping sauce, but they give you a lot of fucking dipping sauce.
Do you know that I just found this out? People put ketchup on their pizza.
Oh, who does that?
Peeps, certain monsters.
What kind of psychopath puts ketchup on their pizza?
Tons of people. Apparently it's a thing. Apparently it's like a real thing. Yes. Apparently it's a real thing. People put ketchup on their pizza.
That's like putting a bialy on a bagel.
Yes. Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's completely fucking stupid and ridiculous.
All right. Do we have questions in the chat before we wrap it up?
We do have a question. Jonathan Gorman had a good question. I'm just gonna try to go back. What do you guys think of what they're doing with Hangman right now?
Listen, I think the Kenny thing, Kenny being a heel is the perfect setup for Hangman to be an ultimate babyface. Right?
I agree. 100%.
In front of a big paper. Like, I'm not talking about the February pay-per-view, but after that, when you're finally in front of a live audience, a super, white hot babyface Hangman to take the title off of Kenny. Great. And even better, Kenny beats the living crap out of him, puts even more heat on him, and makes Hangman a very sympathetic, even more of a sympathetic character.
Oh, so good. I agree with that 100%. And you know what? I think what we're watching with AEW is that we're very giddy for their long-term storytelling because it's going to pay off somehow. Like look at what they did with Pac coming back to Death Triangle. They didn't just drop the angle.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what do we got here. Lewis asks, how much longer is Balor out for? Is he still NXT champ?
Yes, Balor's still NXT champ. He was on NXT. He cut a great promo. I think he's done. I think he's ready.
Yeah. His jaw just got jacked up, but I think he's good to go, right?
Yeah, I think he's ready. I think they're trying to figure out where they're going to go. One great thing NXT did was set up the next, I guess, 4 contenders for that world title, for the NXT championship. You got Kyle O'Reilly that's set up in that position. You have the Bruiserweight set up for that position. I was going to call him Pete Gas. I don't know why. The Bruiserweight Pete Gas.
From the Greenwich Boys?
Yeah, the Greenwich Boys. You have him, and then you have Karrion Kross set up also. So you have a multitude of opponents for the next couple months. So I think that's a positive. And also Ciampa's still in the mix there, and that you could always go back to that. But they've done a good job. We have a caller. You want to take this?
Let's take it, man.
All right. Caller, you're on the air. Who's this? And where are you calling from?
I'm calling from hell,
Oh,
hang up.
Here
There
it
it
is.
On this guy.
and I am MG Geek.
The
Hello,
MG
fellas.
Geek.
Mr.
Uh,
Gonzo, witness to the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah, he was there.
By the way, I just want to let you know, Rich. Someone messaged me this week and goes, "Are you the Mr. Gonzo?"
Tell Mr. Gonzo.
So I'm famous for that.
Are you the Mr. Gonzo? The MG stands for Mr. Gonzo,
Mr. Gonzo.
the original Gonzo. What's going on, man?
Hey, not much, man. I thought I'd chime in real quick before you guys wrap it up. Did you guys? So in your opinion, was that not the best Roman Reigns promo ever last night?
Oh, when he's beating the crap out of Kevin Owens?
No, when he was looking at the camera and cutting a promo on KO's family.
Yeah, but Kevin Owens was like dying in the corner, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, dude, it was actually phenomenal, and I love the part. He goes, he was presenting himself as the reason why they have what they have. I'm the reason why, because I'm able to put bread on your table because I'm the guy carrying this entire company. Man, what a good promo.
Very good.
And you know what the best part about it is?
What?
It's true.
It is. Yes. It is true. It is true. And that makes it and that puts even more heat on it, right? It's not like you have a heel coming out and making up a lie. He's telling the truth. Yeah, it's a stretch, but you know what? He is the number one draw. He is the reason the company has the ratings. He is the reason why merch sales work. And I thought he's very good at, he's giving the fans, the Roman Reigns fans that have booed him for years, he's giving them exactly what they've perceived him to be.
100%.
Correct.
And that always will work. You know, I think what happened was, and we go back to the same well, when it came to Roman, right? I think the moment for him was that Royal Rumble. He was still a heel with the Shield, and he was in like the Final Four or whatever it was. And
I have a theory on that.
And at that very moment, the crowd started cheering for him, and you're like, oh crap, you know what? Things are changing for him. People are liking him because he's a badass. You know what he should be? He should be this generation Steve Austin, right?
Correct.
So
And they screwed it up.
But it will never, listen, it will, when you have that in your mind that he should be this generation Steve Austin, he will never get over.
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, he's not Austin. He's a different character. He's a different person. He wrestles differently. We've seen this endlessly. Everybody that has ever been labeled that he could be the Steve Austin of this group has always failed. You know who comes to mind? Ken Kennedy, right? Wasn't that his story?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Ken Kennedy was going to be this generation Steve Austin. Then you had it with Moxley. He could be this generation Steve Austin. Now you had it with Roman. But Roman now has taken that and turned it into a traditional super heel.
He's his own character now. It's awesome.
And it's awesome.
And here's the thing, is once he evolves through this, he will be able to keep that character, and when he'll just naturally become a face, kind of like what The Rock did.
Yeah.
Very similar. And he doesn't have to be, hokey like they were trying to make him do.
Listen, the second he goes on there, the second he goes on and says suffering succotash, and he starts talking about Vince McMahon's raisins, shriveled up raisins, and the crowd goes, ooh. You've heard the guy. You let him talk the way he talks. I can't. Listen, great example, right, from doing this. Rich and I, we do these live reads. And sometimes I'm sitting here, I'm bashing my head against the wall because I'm trying to read the copy, and it's not in my own words. Because the company said, no, you have to read it this exact way. It doesn't work. And it doesn't work for a guy like Roman Reigns when a 27-year-old kid that's never experienced his life is writing his lines.
Yep.
I agree with
and
that.
You can tell. Well, I'll just finish up. You can tell now with him that he's writing his stuff. He's in charge of his own material. At least him and Heyman are, and I think that's very evident. He's to that point with Vince now, where Vince trusts him.
Yeah,
and that makes a difference.
Yeah. Thank you, MG Geek. Always a pleasure.
Keep on the line. Keep on the line. Don't hang up. Don't hang up on MG Geek.
There you go.
I got 3 questions.
I got another point. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Rich.
I got 3 questions for you.
Wow,
One,
3. Okay.
wasn't Roman calling himself the guy at one point, or was that Seth Rollins?
Yeah, that was him. Yes,
That
correct.
was Roman, right?
That was
Okay.
Right around 2015 when he was going after the title against Brock. It's when they
Okay.
started that.
Question number 2. Can you do a quick Snoop Dogg impression, surprised by the news that
He gets so upset when you bring that up.
he's promoting
man, I
another
can't.
wrestling company?
Yeah. Give me your Snoop Dogg.
I'll
I
set you
have
up. I'll set you up. I'll be the executive.
No, I can't do it.
Mr. Dogg. Mr. Dogg. Knock, knock, Mr. Dogg. It looks like you're appearing for AEW, not WWE.
What player? What player? That's all I got.
Boy.
What player?
Oh,
And
hold on. You can't say that word, MG Geek.
Mr. Geek.
I had to dump him out.
The last
Very
thing
inappropriate.
the last thing I wanna ask you, now that we have you on the air.
No, I dumped them by mistake. By mistake. No, call back. Call back.
MG, call back. This is actually wrestling related and show related, and it's kind of
You know what
important.
happened? I had my finger on the drop button because I wanted to hit the dump button and delay him. And make the whole, I wanted to do the bit that he said something he shouldn't have with a Snoop impersonation. And I hit the drop button instead of the dump button.
What, while he calls back, what's your Snoop impression? Mr. Dogg? Mr. Dogg, it looks like it looks like you screwed up, and
it's like seeing my 2 uncles fight at a barbecue. That's what he said.
Oh, that's terrible.
That's what he said at the Tyson fight. That was his line.
Can you deliver that? Can you deliver that line again?
He goes, man, this is like my 2 uncles fighting at a barbecue.
Oh boy,
dying. All right, hold on, let me answer this. MG Geek, you're back.
Jesus.
Okay, all right. So
I tried to paint you as a racist, and I literally dropped you instead of dumped you.
So
okay, I turned the volume on the feedback, and I was like, oh god, he didn't mean to do that. I really thought, I was like, he's punking me right now.
By the way, my shorts are very short. You guys want to see?
Here.
You want to see?
I want to see those short shorts. Show me those short shorts.
Look at this.
Oh lordy,
God,
very short shorts.
All right, now that we have you on the air, Mr. Gonzo, I really want to ask you, and I want all the fans to know, like, and this is not a knock at all, but you are a little bit older than us, and
correct.
You are a diehard Sting fan, and as a diehard Sting fan, I want you to tell us what this means to you and what your reaction was to him coming back to TNT on Dynamite.
I may or may not have came on my pants, just so you know. and the first person I texted was Rich.
Yes.
Holy shit! And that's where we started this. And I goes, yeah. So I became a hardcore fan probably in '86 when the UWF broke away from Mid-South.
Really? Hold on. I did not know that about you. So you were watching what were you watching growing up?
I watched NWA came on in the afternoon and from the early 80s, but I never got into it as much because my mom freaked out on me when I was like 13 because Stan Hansen cut that famous promo where he had the cowbell and that's on the old analog TV, so there was no regulation of the sound. So that's all you could hear was this cowbell and this
interesting.
Nutty southern guy. My mom came in the room and said, "You will never watch that again." Well, I snuck it over the years, but she was okay with WWF at the time. She was okay with that because it was so.
So you would get what would you get? You would get WWF, you would get NWA, and what else?
And I'd watch ESPN. ESPN replayed World Class Wrestling.
World Class and an AWA, obviously.
And AWA, yeah, and they would replay that. So I got all of that kind of at different times. And then what happened is I would watch. I was a football fan, and I would watch. So my crappy team is the reason I'm a wrestling fan because back in the day the Lions would get blacked out at 1:00, so the television station would put on UWF.
Oh,
that was my first interaction or first to Jim Ross, to let's see, Missy Hyatt, Eddie Gilbert.
Now you're talking.
all that.
By the way, you're talking about the Bill Watts UWF, not the Herb Abrams UWF, which a lot of people mistaken the two. UWF was essentially Mid-South.
Yeah, it was Mid-South when they broke away from the NWA, and it was like a year before he sold it to Crockett.
Yeah, because Crockett bought it in '87. So yeah, you're talking '85, '86.
Yeah, and it was and Sting was just being repackaged, and all he was wearing was biker shorts. He was biker short Sting.
Oh, I like that. I want to be biker short Sting. I like that version.
That's all he was, and that was his tag team partner was Rick Steiner, which is crazy to think. And
well, Rick Steiner was a big NWA staple. I mean, Rick Steiner was gonna be the world champion.
Yeah. So that's where it started, and then he merged with Crockett and went to Georgia, and that's when they merged the U.S. I think it was U.S. titles, and that's when his stardom started from there. And I was a huge fan all the way up and through the 90s, and when 94 when they brought in Hogan, I was like, dude, I need Sting and Hogan, and we never really got that until 97.
So I got a question for you, and then we'll wrap it up here. Is there, and I'll ask this to Rich, and actually the chat room too. You want to go another like 5-10 minutes, Rich, or you got to go?
Sure, yeah. No, I'm good.
You know what we'll do? If you guys want to call in with your from your childhood, like that memory as a kid from wrestling, right?
Yeah.
Call in from your childhood. I want to know, like, what was that moment for you? Because I have about 2 or 3 that I was like, oh my God, when it came to wrestling from my child. I'm saying like under 8 years old, 9 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What was it for you? Like, do you have that moment that you're like, oh my God, like you were glued to the screen?
Me?
It was.
I'm going to Ayaz. I'm going to MG Geek first, and then you.
Yeah.
For me, it was that one, and so I can tell you, I was visiting my grandfather, and I was like 5 or 6 years old, and we visited him in Florida because they're the Michigan thing where you go down south in the winter, and they had a house there, and it was over January, and I remember walking into the room, and he's watching. At the time, he was watching Dusty Rhodes on the old FC Florida Championship Wrestling. It was, and I remember seeing that and going, "That's cool." So that was my first introduction to it. But I really think that moment when I seen UWF, the way it was presented to me, was where I said, "I like this." I also do like, obviously Hulk Hogan. Had a lot to do with that. The Rocky movie. It was right around that same time. Because I was 14 when the Rock and Wrestling stuff. I remember seeing the match, and they replayed him winning the title on MTV. Might have been my first time seeing a full match. And so
I feel like we all have those memories. How about you, Rich?
Mm-hmm.
I very vividly remember Sunday afternoon when I was very young and seeing the Rockers on TV and being like hooked.
That was it, huh?
Yeah, the Rockers, and I want to say like the clips of Hogan also, because those like what people don't really get is that Hogan was everywhere.
Yeah, big time.
Like he was doing like talk shows. He was showing up on, not unlike now, but I feel like it was more prevalent back then, where he would show up on like variety shows, talk shows. He would show up on the news. People like Hulkamania was literally running wild.
And there was like nothing else he could have been doing other than being a wrestler. Like you saw that guy, recognizable. First of all, extremely recognizable, right? But like you saw him, you're like, oh, he's a wrestler. There's no other career path.
I need to find the Sports Illustrated cover that he was on. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
It's like the only wrestler that ever was really on. It was huge. And I will say, back then when they taped all the shows ahead of time, he would be the main event of the actual live show, and then so he was only on every 4th week, and it was always a big week, and they would build up every week. Well, next week we'll have Hogan here, and it was a big show.
Yeah,
and then that's what they did instead of doing pay-per-views back then.
Well, the other thing, like for me, I'll give you a couple moments like that stick out. Obviously, the moment that I discovered Bret Hart and I recognized him And I went into the back. I was at the Garden. It's 91. I go to the back. I'm 6 years old. 5 years old. Yeah, 6 years old. And I'm like, hey, Vince, listen, this guy you got here, Bret, he's a star. Pat Patterson looks at me. He goes, you're absolutely right. And then after that, he skyrocketed. But see, like that was my first live experience that I was like, oh my God, this is great. But a couple memories. Hogan, I believe it was WrestleMania 7. He's covered in blood holding the American flag after defeating Sarge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
That moment always stuck with me. He's just covered in blood holding the flag. The flag has blood all over it. That's one. Flair Rumble.
92.
92.
Tear in my eye.
Bobby Heenan saying, somebody get this man some oxygen. He needs a respirator. And I honestly believe that this poor old man is going to die in this ring.
You always thought he was old.
Because he was like in his 40s then. He was in his 44, 43, 42, something like that. And I would say the snake biting Savage.
Ooh, yeah.
Seeing that as a kid was...
That was a big one. I do remember that.
Guys, I don't think people remember this. That happened on a Saturday afternoon.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, on the show.
On Superstars. It wasn't like... It didn't happen on pay-per-view. It didn't happen on Raw after like 9, 10 o'clock. That happened on a Saturday freaking afternoon.
Yep,
a snake...
I remember seeing that freaking out.
And a snake really bit him.
They legit did that too. They
legit did that. That's sick.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Did you hear
sick.
the story? Jake Roberts telling that story.
I've heard a story. Yeah.
Yeah, he had to show Macho Man that it was not poisonous. And he let it bite him.
Yeah, Macho didn't believe him. But I mean, those are like a couple of memories like from my childhood that would 100% stand out. I mean, there's so many more, but you look at that and you say, "Wow, why did it stand out?" Because it was very adult.
Yeah.
But
over the top as well.
Over the top, like you will not see something like that on WWE programming in its current version. You know what I mean?
Well, why do you think that they keep replaying that Austin beer truck clip from 20 years ago?
Isn't that interesting?
You're not getting stuff like that anymore.
Yeah. Chat room. Some people in the chat room. IS says, and this is actually interesting. Glued to the screen. Ron Bass using the spurs on Beefcake's face with the big X on the screen. Great.
Oh,
great.
Yeah.
Dave D.
There was a lot of them back then.
Boss Man handcuffing Hogan to the barricades and nightstick the fuck out of him while Slick talked crap. Great moment. And Lewis has a great one. Earthquake splashing Hogan.
That one and Earthquake splashing Damien.
I got another one. I got two more. Okay, two more moments. One, it was the first face-to-face between Hogan and Flair. Do you know where it happened? During the funeral parlor segment.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And so they do this face-to-face, and here comes The Undertaker, comes out of a coffin. I don't know. He appeared out of, I think, a coffin. And what does he do? He rips Hogan's cross off. And then he does this. Drops it because it burned his hand. Holy shit. When I was a kid,
I do remember that.
I popped. I popped.
It.
And that's the second time they ran that spot. The first time was with Andre, when Andre ripped the cross off and then threw it on the floor. And you're like, and you know what? Like, as a kid, like, listen, I didn't grow up in a religious household whatsoever, but you knew that's bad. That's bad. That's disrespect. Man, I mean, listen, as a kid, like, you're looking at this, you're like, holy crap, this is awesome. And obviously the barbershop window thing, that resonates also. But those were the moments that stood out for me. And sometimes it's interesting to see like what worked for other people.
So here's a question to kind of follow up on that.
Yeah.
Is how many, and we're older now and we look at wrestling differently, how many of those moments have actually happened in the last like 10 years?
You know what? I feel like they do them. I'm going to tell you this. I feel like they do them all the time and it never resonates. And the reason why is that it's done all the time.
And
every angle has heat. Okay.
Yeah.
I talk about this where everything is heat driven, heat. Everything has heat. We saw it at the end of SmackDown. What did Carmella do? Smash the champagne bottle over Sasha's head. That is a moment when we were kids. That should have been like, oh crap.
Because I looked at that, I was like, damn, that hurt. That looked like it did hurt.
But I think they do those all the time now. And because it's done all the time, it doesn't resonate. Also, we're adults now. So I don't know. I think, talk to a kid in 20 years that watched that when, at 6 years old, seeing that happen. Maybe that's going to be a moment that they say, you know what, that was the moment for me.
I'll give you two good ones.
Yeah.
All right. So
like
recent ones where WWE, I'm taking out of this equation, right?
Okay.
So two things that pop into my head: that New Japan reveal that it was Mox sitting at the bar.
Okay, that was cool.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And also another New Japan reveal where it ended up being Cody as the new member of the Bullet Club, where they shot that beautiful video.
That was done well too.
And the end was the reveal that he was smoking a cigar and that he's joining the Bullet Club.
Let's see. Pipe Bomb and the Nexus debut. The Nexus debut was a big deal. That, you know what? You want to talk about heat that worked? That was heat that worked. But unfortunately for them, it got overshadowed by Daniel Bryan's firing and the angle being with John Cena becoming a member, not being a member. They muddied it up.
That was terrible. They screwed that up. Yeah. For me, the big one was the Shield breakup. That moment was
very big moment. Yeah, very big moment.
Remember, they won probably one of the best matches.
That 3-man match. Yeah,
with against Evolution, and then they turned around the next night and did the breakup, and I thought that was so impactful. And they didn't wait to the end of the show to do it. They did it like at the top of the third.
But you also did not expect that. You didn't expect, and you didn't expect it to be Seth. Everybody thought it was going to be Ambrose, right? Yep. That was that they've always done that tease that it was Ambrose, but it ended up being Seth, and you're like, come on, dude, why?
Yeah, and that was it. You got sucked in, and you forgot at that moment. You forgot you were watching a scripted show.
Yes, absolutely.
When they can do that, that's when wrestling becomes a magical.
Absolutely.
The Mark Henry promo.
The Mark Henry promo, another great one.
Yeah, that one. And the funny thing is, we're going back like 6 to 10 years.
I know.
How many can we think of now? You can't really. There's some funny moments. There's some stuff I can think of, but
it's a different way of writing now. They do a different thing. I think AEW's done a better job at creating some of those moments. I think Cody taking a chair shot to the head is one. I think Cody bleeding ridiculously. Some of these moments work. Brock Lesnar's F5 on Cena, huge moment. Huge moment.
Cody and Dustin's match.
Yeah, Cody and Dustin match. I mean, there's a lot of these moments. But MG Geek, we're going to wrap it up. I appreciate you. I apprate the phone call. Have a wonderful weekend.
Dog.
Thanks, dog.
All right.
Thanks, dog.
We'll have to do this again, all right?
Yeah.
All right, dog.
Hey, Mr. Carter.
What do you mean it's not the Where's the Undertaker?
Where's the Undertaker? Where is he?
Mr. Dog, it's the wrong company. What? And then he just looks at the camera with his sad face. Uh-oh.
I love it. Love it. Becky broke her face. That was another big moment the last couple of years. Yeah. I think we have a lot of these. Dude, today was fun. This was a very different style show compared to the other weeks that we do, but I kind of want to continue doing this. Maybe this will be a thing that we continue doing, doing these
once
call
a week,
in.
baby.
And yeah, let's do it, man. I'm free Saturday mornings.
I'm down.
What else am I doing?
I'm down, dog.
Yeah. I'm down, dog.
I'm going to do the podcast like this from now on.
Mr. Dog, we have another spooky guy, Sting.
Who, Stang?
Sting. Ooh. Oh, I know him, the police.
You mean the tantric singer? Is he going to make me come? And that joke was for you.
There you go. We love you guys. Guys, go to our website, gfqnetwork.com. Subscribe to us. We're everywhere podcasts are available. The year is almost over, so we're going to be doing a lot more of these shows leading up to 2021. I want to make this easy for everybody. Listen, this is our therapy. This is therapy for me. I've actually imploded as a human being on the inside. Mentally, I've lost my mind, but this has been keeping me going. Thank God. Mm-hmm. Thank God. Saturday morning, we're having fun here. Rich, you can follow him on Twitter. BTC Rich on Twitter. Anything else I could plug?
Let's plug our next week's episode of Matt Men the Podcast.
Matt Men the Podcast next Thursday will be live and in living color. Are you in the studio next week or are you remote?
I think I'm remote for until COVID's gone.
Okay,
Again.
cool. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's all right.
That's
This
fine.
works. I do want to change your setup though.
Yeah, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, if we're doing, I think now that we're doing remote, we'll maybe like Monday we'll take some time and just start fixing stuff.
Yeah, we got to figure some stuff out, and then we'll be back and badder than ever.
Badder than ever. All right, guys. We'll see y'all next time. Take care.
Love you.